Okay, so just a rerun of what we've done so far. This was so we started with the Vedas. This is the Isopanisad is part of the Vedas. We're qualifying what we're going to say. Then we talked about the subject matter, which is the supreme absolute truth, Krishna. And so we established the criteria for being God. And then we went on to the first mantra. The first three mantras are saying that everything is controlled by God, therefore we should use everything in His service. This is auspicious, and number 3 it says that if we don't do that, it's inauspicious. It's called the Isopanisad principle, the God-centered activities. And then we went on to a new section called on text 4, which is called the vision of the Mahabhagavat. So we talked about 3 classes of devotees: the Uttama Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and the Kanishna. Krishna's just starting devotional service, and he sees Krishna in the deity. That's all. The Madhyam sees, different grades of living entities, and he tries to help the different grades of living entities. He's a preacher. And then the Mahabhagavat just sees everybody in relation to the Supreme. That's going to be that's in text 7. But text 4 talks about, how the Lord's in one place, but he's also in many places. Therefore, he can overcome anybody else running. And that he's controlling the powerful demigods who are supplying all our necessities. And then in 6, it talks about how, he walks, but he doesn't walk. He's near, but he's far away. He's both inside and outside of everything. So he qualified that he doesn't have material legs. He's actually spiritual. Therefore, he's able to do that. And then 7, well, last week, they said, Yastu Sarvani Bhutani. Let's find it. 6. Yeah, the 4 potencies of the Lord, what we just mentioned. And this is how he sees those potencies. 6. So Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmeva Buddha Vijnanataha. Let me just find the Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmeva Atmanyeva Napashyati Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam Tato Na Vijagupsite. So Anupashyati was the main word in text 6. That we learn to see in disciplic succession through the eyes of Shastra and through the eyes of Guru. Anu means to follow. Pashyati means to see or to accept information in disciplic succession. And it was saying that all living, the Mahabhagavat is the one we're talking about, the highest devotee, how he sees the world. So here we are, 7. So here we see on the right-hand side in blue writing that he doesn't see anything separate from Krishna. Everything he sees, he can actually connect it with the Supreme. And he sees that even all the different living entities They're actually, parts and parcels of the Lord. What's a part and parcel? Does anybody know?
The whole.
It is, yeah. But
Everything attached to.
what's that?
Everything attached to, part and parcel.
Yeah, that's right. In other words, part is part of something, is part of the Lord, but he's also has the same, he has a body like the Lord, or it appears like the Lord, he has arms, legs, he's a person, part and parcel. And then 3, he sees the Lord within everything. So this is Rishikesh or Paramatma. He's also seeing the Lord's controlling everything, and he's in everybody's heart. So he has a complete vision, and he doesn't see anything separate, in other words. And then we went on to mantra 7 now. So it's the same, it means that, we'll recite it first, shall we? And then we can start reading. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atme babut vijnanataha tatrako moha kashoka ekatvam anupashyataha. So that word upashyataha, upashyati it's still there. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So we'll read now. In other words, just to over, it says the same spiritual nature. That means a spark is same as a fire, but it's what they call anu. Anu means very small, and Krishna is vibhu, is very great. So it likens it to a drop of salt water compared to the whole ocean. They're the same in quality, but they're different in quantity. Yeah. Okay. Barbara Mataji, do you want to read?
Yeah. Except for the Madhyama Adhikari, the Uttama Adhikari discussed above, no one can correctly see the spiritual position of a living being. The living entities are consciously one with the Supreme Lord, just as the sparks of a fire are consciously one with the fire. Yet sparks are not fire as far as quantity is concerned, for the quantity of heat and light present in the sparks is not equal to that in the fire. The Mahabhagavata, the great devotee, sees oneness in the sense that he sees everything as the energy of the Supreme Lord. Since there is no difference between the energy and the energetic, there is a sense of oneness. Although from the analytical point of view, heat and light are different from fire, there is no meaning to the word fire without heat and light. In synthesis, synthesis, therefore heat, light and fire are the same.
Right. Thank you, Mataji.
Synthesis.
Yes, so oneness and difference. Can you carry on? What's from Barnsley? I can't remember now.
I have changed it. I thought it might have came up with my name now.
No, it's not.
Sorry, I apologise for that. I'll have another go next time.
Got it, Andy?
Yes, it's Andy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, in this mantra, the words Ivatvam, Anupasayata indicates that one should see the unity of all living entities from the viewpoint of the revealed scriptures. The individual sparks of the Supreme Whole, the Lord, possess almost 80% of the known qualities of the whole, but they are not quantitatively equal to the Supreme Lord. These qualities are present in minute quantities, for the living entity is but a minute part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. To use another example, the quantity of salt present in a drop is never comparable to the quantity of salt present in the complete ocean. But the salt present in the drop is qualitatively equal in chemical composition to all the salt present in the ocean. Shall I carry on?
Yeah.
Well, we just covered that, haven't we? If the individual living beings were equal to the Supreme Lord, both qualitatively and quantitatively, there would be no question of his being under the influence of the material energy. In the previous mantras, it has already been discussed that no living being, not even the powerful demigods, can surpass the Supreme Being in any respect. Therefore, Ekatvam does not mean that a living being is equal in all respects to the Supreme Lord. It does, however, indicate that in a broader sense, there is one interest, just as in a family, the interest of all members is one, or in a nation, the national interest is one. Although there is many different individual citizens, since the living entities are all members of the same Supreme Family, their interest and that of the Supreme Being are not different. Every living being is the son of the Supreme Being.
Okay. So, any questions on that? I think that's straightforward. Prabhupada gives nice examples just to make it easy for us, material examples. Obviously, we can't equate them exactly because material examples are not like spiritual examples. It's a different nature. But he does this so that we can get some idea. And, you know, we can't fully understand it because we don't understand properly the nature of spirit. And especially the Supreme Spirit, which is, you know, beyond comprehension. But, you know, by the examples given by Prabhupada, it becomes something tangible. I gave the example of the frog in the well, I think, last week. You know, it can't understand much outside what his experiences are. But still, we have to relate things to, you know, the experiences that people have. And then, you know, they can get some idea. Okay, so, my Parishri Mataji, would you like to carry on with that paragraph?
Krishna. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.5, all living creatures throughout the universe, including birds, reptiles, ants, aquatics, trees, and so on, are emanations of the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, all of them belong to the family of the Supreme Being. There is no clash of interest.
Okay, you carry on.
Thank you. The spiritual entities are meant for enjoyment, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra 1.1.12 and under Maya Bhyasyat. By nature and constitution, every living being, including the Supreme Lord and each of his parts and parcels, is meant for eternal enjoyment. The living beings who are encaged in this material tabernacle are constantly seeking enjoyment, but they are seeking it on the wrong platform. Apart from the material platform is the spiritual platform, where the Supreme Being enjoys himself with his innumerable associates. On that platform, there is no trace of material qualities, and therefore that platform is called Nirguna. On the Nirguna platform, there is never a clash over the object of enjoyment. Here in the material world, there is always a clash between different individual beings, because here the proper center of enjoyment is missed. The real center of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord, who is the center of the sublime and spiritual rasa dance. We are all meant to join him and enjoy life with one transcendental interest and without any clash. That is the highest platform of spiritual interest. And as soon as one realizes this perfect form of oneness, there can be no question of illusion, moha, or lamentation, shoka. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the symptoms of the material world. It mentions in the Bhagavad Gita in the 7th chapter, I think it's the 27th verse. It says everybody's born into dualities of desire and hate. This is caused by, our attachment to the, or our contamination under the influence of the material energy. It's forcing us to actually see things as in duality, and then therefore it creates, things that we accept and things that we reject, and relationships we accept and relationships which we reject. But in our constitutional position, it says the modes of nature are not there, so that natural relationship with Krishna is actually unaffected. We just have that relationship eternally. And so, the whole purpose is to, get rid of this lamentation and illusion, desire and hate. And we have to practice it, as I said last week. We're chanting the Maha Mantra, we're following the principles, which actually help us to become free. When we follow the principles, we're uprooting the anchor to this world. We're anchored by not following these 4 regulative principles. Gambling, intoxication, meat eating, illicit sex. So we uproot the anchor, and then we can row the boat by the Maha Mantra, like that. And so then we start to experience some relief, but it's not complete. It's gradual. And also we start to appreciate that we have to, make an effort to develop that freedom from lamentation and illusion, or harsha shoka, happiness and distress. Has anybody tried it? We can sometimes step back from a situation. First instruction of the Bhagavad Gita is to tolerate, isn't it? So when we tolerate, we give ourselves room to actually analyze the situation we're in. And with this knowledge we're getting from the Vedic scriptures, like Isopanisad, Bhagavad Gita, we're able to apply it. And then, try and act on that platform of neutrality. I remember one devotee, they call him, what do you call him now? I can't remember. He was a Prabhupada disciple anyway. Kaliyapani. I don't know whether you ever know him. Well, Kaliyapani, he was a very active devotee, and he was driving up the motorway. I think he was coming to Manchester, actually, and he got in a traffic jam. And you know what happens when we get in a traffic jam? It's like really frustrating. And he was starting to complain, and he stopped. He said, well, wait a minute, there's nothing I can do about it. And then he started thinking that, I just have to tolerate. So, that made an impression on me that it's not just things will just happen automatically. We have to really make an effort in that respect also. Stop complaining. Okay. Who's not ready yet? Jai Krishna Prabhu.
Okay. A godless civilization arises from illusion. And the result of such civilization is lamentation. Godless civilization such as that sponsored by the modern politicians is always full of anxieties, because it may be crushed at any moment. That is the law of nature, stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7:14. No one but those who surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord can surpass the stringent laws of nature. Thus, if we wish to get rid of all sorts of illusion and anxiety, create unity out of all diverse interests, we must bring God into all our activities.
Yeah.
Did I go on?
I'm just thinking about that. Has anybody got anything to say about that? Any realization? The same as what I was talking about, but not just being neutral to everything, which is like what a jnani or a person who just develops knowledge about the difference between matter and spirit, they'll actually become neutral. But it's not enough, you know, for a devotee, because if we don't have anything to actually take the place of material attachment, we'll become attached again. So, you know, the process of devotional service is not to, like I was saying, make an effort just to get detached, but make an effort to actually increase our service. And that naturally takes over from we naturally lose that attachment. Okay, you carry on a bit.
Shut up.
The results of activities must be used to serve the interest of the Lord and not for any other purpose. Only by serving the Lord's interest can we perceive the Atma Bhuta interest mentioned herein. The Atma Bhuta interest mentioned in this mantra and the Brahma Bhuta interest mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 1854 are one and the same. Supreme Atma or soul is Lord himself, and the minute Atma is the living entity. Supreme Atma or Paramatma alone maintains all the individual minute beings, for the Supreme Lord wants to derive pleasure out of their affection. The Father extends himself through his children and maintains them in order to derive pleasure. If the children obey the Father's will, family affairs will run smoothly, with one interest and a pleasing atmosphere. The same situation is transcendently arranged in the absolute family of the Para-Brahman, the Supreme Spirit.
Yeah, I was reading, what was it, Gopal? Anyway, it's a well-read book. It's about Krishna's pastimes up to the Ras dance, you know, first 29 chapters. Gopal Champu, they call it. And it goes into a little bit of detail about the spiritual world. And, it completely changed my understanding of what the spiritual world is. You know, it's talking about cities and, different, roadways and different, it's like I could just imagine that, it's pretty much like what we have here, obviously not in the cities that we have, but there's still active life going on. There's still, everything's the same, but the actual meditation is completely different, that's all. The meditation is on centering everything around Krishna. So, Shastra tells us that Iha Yashya Harer Dashya Kamana Manasagira Nikalash Basta. So Jivan Mukta Sauchite. Jivan Mukta means liberation. He says, if we actually learn the art of just connecting with Krishna, then we're actually in the spiritual world already. We're liberated. Just like Prabhupada, he was in in that consciousness, and his disciples took him on an excursion. They wanted to go to a certain place, but they'd been that way before, but they took him a different way this time, and they came across a really degraded part of the city. And one of his disciples said, "Oh, Prabhupada, we're really sorry for bringing you here." And Prabhupada said, "What's the problem?" He says, "This is Vaikuntha." He says, "You can't see, but I can." So he wasn't, was seeing the spiritual world. So that's what we're talking about. This is a section called the vision of the Maha Bhagavat, the topmost devotee. Okay, we'll get there. We will get there. Keep trying. Okay, what's next? Let's turn over the page here just a minute. Sandeep, can you read?
Me, I've lost my place here now. Are we on 51?
Well, page, I don't know. I've got my
49,
On what?
I've got my Kindle, so
page 49.
48.
Different book. This is a different book. The last paragraph.
Are we on in this mantra the words No,
No.
it's not there.
The Parabrahman is as much a person as the individual entities. It's
Oh, yeah.
okay.
The Parabrahman is as much a person as the individual entities. Neither the Lord nor the living entities are impersonal. Such transcendental personalities are full of transcendental bliss, knowledge, and life eternal. That is the real position of spiritual existence. And as soon as one is fully cognizant of the transcendental position, he at once surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Being. Sri Krishna, but such a Mahatma or great soul is very rarely seen because such transcendental realization is achieved only after many, many births. Once it is attained, however, there is no longer any illusion or lamentation or the miseries of material existence of birth and death, which all are experienced in our present life. This is the information we get from the mantra of Sri Isopanisad.
Upanishad. Yeah. Okay. So this one's a complicated complicated verse. It doesn't, anyway, I'll try and recite it. This is number 8, mantra 8. Saparyat chukam akayam avarnam ashnaviram shuddha apapa vidvam avir manisi paribhu swayambhu yatatatyato vitan vyadach chasva dipabhavya sambhuyaha sambhyaha. Okay. Such a person must firstly know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure, uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. So now we'll try and the purport will unwrap what these statements actually mean in the translation. Sandeep Prabhu, are you there?
Yeah. Here is a description of the transcendental and eternal form of absolute personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is not formless. He has his own transcendental form, which is not at all similar to the forms of mundane world. The form of living entities in this world are embodied in material nature and they work like any material machine. The anatomy of material body must have a mechanical construction with veins and so forth, but the transcendental body of a Supreme Lord has nothing like veins. It is clearly stated here that he is unembodied, which means that there is no difference between his body and his soul, nor he is forced to accept a body according to the law of nature. As we are in maternally conditioned life, the soul is different from the gross embodiment and subtle mind. For the Supreme Lord, however, there is never any such difference between him and his body and mind. He is the complete whole, and his mind, body, and he himself are all one and the same.
Well, that's spiritual existence, that's consciousness, the consciousness of the soul, that's coming from. So that's the nature of spirit. Everything's conscious. But somehow or other, the actual supreme consciousness is actually a person. So that's something we can't do with IT. What is it now? AI, is it? AI, artificial
Yeah,
intelligence.
artificial intelligence.
Yeah, you won't get any of these machines, deciding to go to a football match or, doing something, they just won't do it. So that's showing that they have a limitation. They're not actually conscious. They've been programmed, that's all. But the nature of spirit is that it doesn't need to be, it's already programmed by the Supreme Lord. It's already actually not necessarily programmed, we're eternal and separate. One is Anu, one is Vibhu, one is great, one is small, that's all. We have the same nature. We're just placed into different situations according to our consciousness. So now we're in a consciousness of enjoying, so we're placed into our nature like that. When we've got a consciousness of giving Krishna pleasure, we're placed under another, the consciousness of the soul is placed under another nature. That's the way things are actually working. Yeah, body, mind, and soul are all the same. Body, mind, and soul. Okay. You can carry on a bit, Sandeep.
In the Brahma Samhita 5.1, there is a similar description of Supreme Lord. He is described there as Saksit Anandita Vigraha, which means that he is the eternal form fully representing transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss. As such, he does not require a separate body or mind, as we do in material existence. The Vedic literature clearly states that Lord's transcendental body is completely different from ours. Thus, he is sometimes described as formless. This means that he has no form like ours and that he is devoid of a form we can conceive of. In the Brahma Samhita 5.32, it is further stated that with each and every part of his body, he can do the work of the other senses. This means that the Lord can walk with his hands, accept things, and his legs, see with his hands, and feet, eat with his eyes, etc. In the Shruti mantras, it is also said that although the Lord has no hands and legs like us, he has a different type of hands and legs by which he can accept all we offer him and run faster than anyone. These points are confirmed in this 8 mantra through the use of word like Sukram, omnipotent.
Okay. Yeah, this is a contact. This is a connection with 7 to 8. It's more information about the ultimate adhikari, how he perceives, how he perceives the transcendental qualities. We'll hear about how he has veins, how he doesn't have veins. We only have veins in the material body, in other words, like that. Unembodied. He has no material body. Pure and uncontaminated. We'll hear about prophylactic. What does prophylactic mean? Or I remember I used to be in electrical trade, and cables. They have insulation between the conductors, and that's got a similar name, prophylactic. So I always see it as insulation, and I looked on the dictionary and it says the same thing, a similar thing. But Prabhupada used it in a different context. We'll read how he gives it it's Krishna's association. And I thought, well, that's not what my understanding. But when we think about it, if we've got Krishna's association with prophylactic, we're not affected by the material energy. So I assume that's what Prabhupada means. Okay. Let's have a look. Where's Tusha? Is it Tusha? Is he still here?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thanks.
Oh, you did.
Hare Krishna. The Lord's worshipable form, Archa Vigraha, which is installed in temples by authorized acharyas who have realized the Lord in terms of Mantra 7, is none different from the original form of the Lord. The Lord's original form is that of Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna expands himself into an unlimited number of forms such as Baladeva, Rama, Narasimha, and Varaha. All of these forms are one and the same personality of Godhead. Similarly, the Archa Vigraha worshipped in the temples is also an expanded form of the Lord. By worshipping the Archa Vigraha, one can at once approach the Lord, who accepts the service of the devotee by his omnipotent energy. The Archa Vigraha of the Lord descends at the request of the Acharyas, the holy teachers, and works exactly in the original way of the Lord by virtue of the Lord's omnipotence. Foolish people have no knowledge of the Sri Isopanisad or any other Shruti mantras. Foolish people who have no knowledge of the Sri Isopanisad or any of the other Shruti mantras consider the Archa Vigraha, which is worshipped by pure devotees, to be made of material elements. This form may be seen as material by the imperfect eyes of foolish people or Kanishta Adhikaris, but such people do not know that the Lord, being omnipotent and omniscient, can transform matter into spirit and spirit into matter as he desires.
Yeah, I was reading today, actually, I think it was, or yesterday, in Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. Has anybody got that book? It's really good. I've got the 3rd volume. And Prabhupada went to Amsterdam. He went to France first and we installed deities, but they were nowhere near ready. So he said, we better wait. And then he went to Amsterdam. He was supposed to install some deities there. And then, he saw that they weren't ready. But anyway, he went somehow or other, he went ahead with it. But he said, actually, do you expect me to ask Krishna to come here when things are in so much chaos? So, that puts a bit more light on it, that it's not just the way we see, particularly with the Archa Vigraha, it's actually a special form of, we may see bricks and stones and buildings, they're all Krishna, they're all Krishna's energy. But the Archa Vigraha is something more. It's actually Krishna accepts worship through that form because he's called by his pure devotee. And so I've got a question now. If we have a picture of Krishna, is that Krishna? Is it like the Archa Vigraha? Okay. It can be if we're pure enough, isn't it? Go on.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. If we,
pastimes and paraphernalia are all non-different. Right?
Yeah. And actually in Bhagavatam it says, what's it say now? Tvam bhakti yoga parabhavita rit saroja. I say shruta. This word shruta, ikshita, means we see by hearing. It says, but if we carry on hearing, then, Krishna will appear before us in a form that we've always thought of him. Yeah. So when that desire to serve him is so pure, then Krishna will actually come in that form. I was actually on, I don't know if I've told you this before, I was in Manchester temple before I went to the manor, and I was doing books, door to door. And one day, Krishna Dharma, the temple president, he came to me and he said, because we've got no deities, we only got a picture of Panchatattva. He said, which deity do you worship or are you attracted to? And I said, well, I don't really know. And then I got some books in my bag, and one of them was On the Way to Krishna. I don't know if you've seen that book. And it's Krishna walking along in the forest. He's just looking over his shoulder with his flute. I said, I like that picture. He said, oh, all right then, I suppose Sankirtan devotees, they get attached to a picture in the book. So then I thought, well, what did he ask me that for? And then I forgot about it. And about 10 years later, I was at the manor, And I was listening to a class by Malati, and she was there when they first installed the deities at the manor. And she was talking about Radha Kulan. He said, yeah, these deities, it said, I actually had the deities put on a book called On the Way to Krishna. So it was actually at Gokulananda that I was actually looking at every day. So somehow or another, Krishna makes arrangements. Okay, not Sandy, but what's it? Suman. Are you there, Suman Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hi, Bo.
In the Bhagavad Gita 9:11 to 12, the Lord regards the fallen conditions of men with little knowledge, who derived from him because he descendants like a man into the world. Such poorly informed persons do not know the omnipotency of the Lord. Thus, the Lord does not manifest himself in full to the mental speculators. He can be appreciated only in proportions to one's surrender to him. The fallen conditions of the living entities is due to entirely to forgetfulness of their relationship with God.
Fail.
Thanks. In this mantra, as well as in many other Vedic mantras, it is clearly stated that the Lord has been supplying goods to the living entities from time immemorial. A living being desires something, and the Lord supplies the object of that desire in proportion to one's qualifications. If a man wants to be a high court judge, he must acquire not only the necessary qualifications, but also the consent of the authority who can award the title of high court judge. The qualifications in themselves are insufficient for one to occupy the post. It must be awarded by some superior authority. Similarly, the Lord awards enjoyment to living entities in proportions to their qualifications. But good qualifications in themselves are not sufficient to enable one to receive awards. The mercy of the Lord is also required.
Yeah, there's a verse in the Puranas which explains that. I don't know whether I can find it, but it says it's not by erudite scholarship or, good hearing. We usually told that hearing Bhagavatam is enough, by good hearing and by, chanting, continuous chanting that Krishna appears. It says he reserves the right to appear to whom he wants to appear to. So in other words, it's a very personal thing, devotional service. And if we actually come to that, understanding where, we start to take devotional service personally, then it comes to another platform. It tends to go off the mechanical platform and, another dimension of devotional service is open to us. And that's a really auspicious thing, actually, if you can do that. I'm just looking through to see if I can find it now. No, it's not there. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. So we'll go back to the beginning again. It's Andy again.
Ordinarily, the living being does not know what to ask from the Lord, nor which post to seek. When the living being comes to know his constitutional position, however, he asks to be accepted into the transcendental association of the Lord in order to render transcendental loving services unto him. Unfortunately, living beings under the influence of material nature ask for many other things, and they are described in the Bhagavad Bhagavad Gita 2.41 as having divided or splayed intelligence. Spiritual intelligence is one, but mundane intelligence is diverse. In Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.30.31, it is stated that those who are captivated by the temporary beauties of the external energy forget the real aim of life, which is to go back to Godhead. Forgetting this, one tries to adjust things by various plans and programs, but this is like chewing what has already been chewed. Nonetheless, the Lord is so kind that He allows a forgetful living entity to continue in this way without interference. Thus, go on, I'll pause.
Yeah, carry on.
Carry on. Thus, this mantra of Sri Ishanapad uses the very appropriate word. Oh, thank you.
I couldn't get a phone either.
Indicating that
Yes,
the Lord
yes,
rewards. Indicating that the Lord rewards the living entities just in pursuance of their desires. If a living being wants to go to hell, the Lord allows him to do so without interference. And if he wants to go back home, back to the Godhead, the Lord helps him.
Yeah. So everything is based on the balls in our court. Okay, Mataji, Maheshwari.
Thank you. God is described here as Parabu, the greatest of all. No one is greater than or equal to him. Other living beings are described here as beggars who ask goods from the Lord. The Lord supplies the things the living entities desire. If the entities were equal to the Lord in potency, if they were omnipotent and omniscient, there would be no question of their begging from the Lord, even for so-called liberation. Real liberation means going back to Godhead. Liberation as conceived of by an impersonalist is a myth, and begging for sense gratification has to continue eternally unless the beggar comes to his spiritual senses and realizes his constitutional position. Thank you. Carry on.
Yeah.
Okay. Only the Supreme Lord is self-sufficient. When Lord Krishna appeared on earth 5,000 years ago, he displayed his full manifestation as the personality of Godhead through his various activities. In his childhood, he killed many powerful demons such as Agathasura, Bakashura, and Shakatasura, and there was no question of his having acquired such power through any extraneous endeavor. He lifted Govardhan Hill without ever practicing weightlifting. He danced with the gopis without social restriction and without reproach. Although the gopis approached him with a paramour's feeling of love, the relationship between the gopis and Lord Krishna was worshipped even by Lord Chaitanya, who was a strict sannyas and rigid follower of disciplinary regulations. To confirm that the Lord is always pure and uncontaminated, Sri Isopanisad described him as Sudam, antiseptic, and Apadavidam, prophylactic. He is antiseptic in the sense that even an impure thing can become purified just by touching him. The word prophylactic refers to the power of his association, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:30-31. A devotee may appear to be sudurachara, not well behaved in the beginning, but he should be accepted as pure because he is on the right path. This is due.
Yeah, we're pure because we're following a pure path. If we follow the pure path given by the Acharya, then we're considered to be the same. You know, just like we given directions how to do something by an expert, then we become expert. But we're not actually as expert as the person who's directing us. Barbara, would you like to read?
Yeah. Where did we get up to now? So he's antiseptic in the sense that even An impure thing can become purified just by touching it. The word prophylactic refers to the power of his association. As mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:30-31, a devotee may appear to be Rakara, not well behaved in the beginning, but he should be accepted as pure because he is on the right path. This is due to the prophylactic nature of the Lord's association. The Lord is also a papavitam because sin cannot touch him, even if he acts in a way that appears to be sinful. Such actions are all good, but there is no question of his being affected by sin, because in all circumstances he is Sutam, most purified. He is often compared to the sun. The sun extracts moisture from many untouchable places on the earth, yet it remains pure. In fact, it purifies obnoxious things by the virtue of sterilizing powers. If the sun, which is a material object, is so powerful, then we can hardly begin to imagine the purifying strength of the all-powerful Lord.
Right. Well, that's the end of that. Any comments on that? Any questions? Okay. Then we're going on to a new section now, which was we were talking about how the, from 4 to 8, how the highest devotee, Maha Bhagavat. Oh, have you got a hand up? Oh no, she hasn't. I thought you got your hand up there. Barbara's got her hand up, right?
I'm sorry, I can hardly hear tonight for some reason.
What's that?
I can't hardly hear. I've got my phone on the highest volume. I can't hear very well.
Okay.
I think it must be the phone. So.
Okay. Oh yeah, so 4 to 8, we did the how the highest devotee sees the Supreme Lord. So we got some practical examples. And now we're going on to another section which talks about, what knowledge we need to be able to come to that platform. It talks about different kinds of knowledge. And this is material knowledge we're talking about first, and the result of, what's cultivating material knowledge. Andam tamaha pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuya iva te tamo ya uvidyayam rataha. Those who engage in the culture of nescient activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. So there's two classes of people here. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with the... there's two classes of people here. Here we are. 9 to 11. Culture of knowledge and nescience. One is somebody who's just ignorant and he just carries on in ignorance, but somebody who thinks he knows something, like, people who actually develop a lot of material knowledge, especially if they think they're actually good at developing spiritual knowledge. And it says they just actually mislead everybody. So that kind of, it's not helpful. It's like a passionate fool, an ignorant fool or an inactive fool. At least he doesn't do too much damage. He just does it for himself. But somebody who's active, he causes damage for everybody else. So, this educational system we have, it's like that. It'll talk about that in a bit. So who's next to read? Tusha, you are next.
Hare Krishna, thank you. This mantra offers a comparative study of the Vidya and Avidya. Avidya, or ignorance, is undoubtedly dangerous, but Vidya, or knowledge, is even more dangerous when mistaken or misguided. This mantra of Sri Isopanisad is more applicable today than at any other time in the past. Modern civilization has advanced considerably in the field of mass education, but the result is that people are more unhappy than ever before because of the stress placed on material advancement to the exclusion of the most important part of life, the spiritual aspect. Okay.
Carry on.
Yes, thank you. As far as Vidya is concerned, the first mantra has explained very clearly that the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything, and that forgetfulness of this fact is ignorance. The more a man forgets this fact of life, the more he is in darkness. In view of this, a godless civilization directed toward the so-called advancement of education is more dangerous than a civilization in which the masses of people are less educated.
Okay. What shall we do? We've got probably just under halfway through this one. Shall we complete it or save it for next week? We've got 2 pages to do. What do you think?
It's a brand new topic, so should we just restart it next week?
Can do. What does everybody else think? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we'll do that next week.
Cool.
So thank you for joining again.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We'll see you. Let's have a look. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Do we have that class on Thursday as well? The one on etiquette.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
from Manchester. It's Wednesday. It's actually Wednesday, is it? So yeah, I didn't know whether everybody had got that. I thought it was just local, but obviously there's devotees outside of Manchester. Yeah, everybody's invited.
Can you send me the link, Maharaj?
Yeah,
I'll put it on the group.
yeah. Yeah, the Vaishnav etiquette. It's actually a book, an old book by Bhakti Swami, and it goes into quite a bit of detail about different aspects of etiquette. Etiquette in management, personal etiquette, etiquette in between devotees. It's very comprehensive. It'll be, I don't know how to do it because I've only got this book and I can't share it, so I'll be doing quite a lot of reading. So I hope it doesn't actually become a little bit stereotype, that's all. You know what I mean? It's not like interactive. Anyway, I'll try and get, if I can, I'll try and get some background, some pictures to keep everybody awake, Yeah, I'll send you the link, then you can send it to everybody else.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody. Sure.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna,
Thank you.
Prabhupada ki.